In the summer of 2022, I was at rock bottom. Now, if you've seen my channel before, you probably have seen this video highlighting my cycling journey that started during this time. However, something I haven't gone incredibly in depth into is all the changes I made off the bike, showing the nutrition, the body changes, and the major lifestyle adjustments I had to make to lose 71 pounds in 5 months. In this video, we're gonna go over all of that. So let's get into it. So let's start with a little bit of my athletic backstory. Then we will lead into why I gained the weight, and finally the things I implemented into my life to shed it all back off. Okay, so first things first, the backstory. I played baseball up until my junior year of college. I played both baseball and basketball in high school, plus I dabbled in downhill mountain biking in high school with my buddies on the weekends. I would say I was a pretty active person. So let's pick up this story my junior year of college. I was attending a small school in Oregon, playing baseball and majoring in business. I never really weighed myself because, as far as I remember, I wasn't ever unhappy with my weight. I had experience with dieting at the time and tracking macros though, because the baseball program encouraged healthy weight gain to gain strength. If I had to guess though, at the time, based on my physique, I was probably anywhere from 180 to 190 pounds throughout my junior year of college. I was around the same weight and size from my sophomore year of high school on. My body was comfortable here and I was used to it. In college, I was quite active. Like I said, I was playing baseball. So during the season, that meant weightlifting in the morning, practice in the afternoon, followed by ab work and bullpens because I was a PO or pitcher only. This kept me in a healthy place body fat wise. I definitely had more muscle mass than I do now, but that was my main focus back then, being as strong as possible in my upper and lower body in order to throw a baseball as hard as I could. So the end of my junior year is when everything changed. I ended up quitting baseball in order to pursue, well, this might come as a shock, but professional gaming. This is where I really learned how to edit videos. Honestly, it was in the gaming space, but that's a story for another time. My friends and I in college got very into a game called Fortnite right when it came out and somehow seemed to get ahead of the learning curve. It was pure luck. We were making a decent amount of money for college students and decided to run with it, so I made the difficult decision to put more time into that and quit baseball. But me being someone who is active and can't sit still for very long, I had to pick something else up, something that was a little bit more flexible with time because I had to balance streaming, school, and content creation. So I dove back into my high school roots and started playing pickup basketball again. We would play 2 to 3 hours a day at night with all of our friends. It truly was a blast. I'm guessing this is where some of my endurance success comes from now in the biking industry, but who really knows? As far as weight is concerned, I would honestly say I lost a little bit of weight during this time. My guess is I was at a comfortable 175 to 180 pounds. However, I never really watched what I ate. I can still remember eating a whole box of Cheez-Its at 2 a.m. while we were playing video games, but it wasn't really a problem because of how many calories I was burning during basketball during the day. I would also skip meals because I was too focused on gaming. Again, this is definitely not a healthy way to live. So where did it all go wrong? Well, I copied the formula from my junior year and pasted it to my senior year: school, video games, and basketball. And it was all going well until the world shut down. Oh yeah, the good old 2020. I'm sure y'all are aware what happened.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
My girlfriend and I then moved in with her parents because they were in Oregon and we weren't really sure when all this would blow over. We needed to stay in Oregon to finish school, but campus was completely shut down. Long story short, this is when it all started to go wrong. I continued 2 out of the 3 things that I talked about earlier: school, video games, and basketball. I bet y'all can guess which one I didn't continue doing. Yeah, the basketball part. I would have loved to keep playing, but at the time, the world was shut down and you weren't able to be close to anyone else. I also no longer had access to a gym because we were no longer living on campus, and I was really too lazy to do anything about it. I also didn't even consider it as a problem until too late. This is when I started to put on weight, and I put it on fast. From March 2020 to July 2020, I put on roughly 30 pounds, going from 175 to 205, give or take a couple pounds. I realized what was happening, but it wasn't really bothering me at this point. In my head, I had been about 200 pounds before for baseball, but what I didn't take into consideration is that it was a completely different body composition. That 200 pounds from back in the day was muscle. The 200 pounds that I was at in July of 2020 was fat. And if I didn't make changes and continued down this path, it was only going to get much, much worse. Well, I didn't make changes. Fast forward to late 2021, I'd put on about another 10 pounds, bringing the grand total up to roughly 215. Honestly, during 2021, I was a bit more active getting into snowboarding and golf, and this kept my weight from creeping up too much, but it was still trending in the wrong direction. In late 2021, this is where I really started to spiral. I started a production company with my buddy, and we edited golf videos for some of the biggest names in YouTube golf. GM Golf, Bryson DeChambeau, Good, and a couple others. The grind was real. We were honestly making good money, and the production company was headed in the right direction, which is amazing, but at what cost? We were burning the wick at both ends, working about 100 hours a week, usually sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a day, and door dashing damn near every meal because we simply didn't have time to make food because we wanted to hit deadlines for videos. At the time, Alyssa, my fiance, was starting to get really worried about me. We were also traveling all over the world to film golf content for these clients that we had, and this really didn't help the weight situation. I'll talk more in depth about the production company in another video because for some of y'all, it might sound like a dream, and for me, it was before I started living it. I realized that I'm more of a homebody and that my mental health was deteriorating fast. I also finally weighed myself in June of 2022 to find out I was 256 pounds. This is when I hit rock bottom. It was time to turn it around. Alyssa and I had moved down to Northern California from Oregon at this time, so it felt like a perfect opportunity for a reset, a complete life change. I started to track my caloric intake in July of 2022, but didn't really have much success with it at first. I was using the app MyFitnessPal, and I was going based off their suggested caloric intake for someone who wasn't very active, which I really wasn't at the time. And to be honest, it was really, really hard. In order for me to lose weight, I had to eat roughly 1,700 calories or less a day according to the app. Their calculation is based off my metabolism significantly slowing down because I was less active, not sleeping enough, and extremely stressed with work. I also had no caloric output because I wasn't active. I would just sit all day behind a computer working and editing. In August of 2022, as many of you know, I picked up cycling. This is where things started to trend in the right direction. I was still the same weight as in June because, like I said, I had no success with the counting of calories. And it just simply wasn't possible for me to eat 1,700 calories. I would do it for one day, the next day I would get cravings, go over, and then it would just spiral. My mental health was deteriorating, as I said, and it was just a nightmare. So within the first months of cycling from August to September, I lost 34 pounds. So what was happening? Why was this happening? And why was cycling the catalyst? Well, here's what was happening. I was eating at a caloric deficit, upping my caloric maintenance, and awakening residual fitness I had from years of being somewhat active before this. I was tracking every ounce of food that went into my body with MyFitnessPal, and I was trying to be at an 800 to 1,000 calorie deficit a day. However, if you do the math, there are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, and in a little over a month, I lost 34 pounds. So how was that possible? Was I losing a pound of fat per day? No, probably not. I can't say for certain because I didn't get a DEXA scan before starting this process. I really wish I did in hindsight, but we can't turn back time. A DEXA scan, for y'all that don't know, measures your exact bone density. This can be used to determine your body fat percentage, muscle mass, and a couple other things. Okay. So back to why I lost 34 pounds, but it wasn't all fat. This is because within a day of focusing on eating more whole foods, I saw a significant decrease in stomach bloating, and I could tell my body was holding on to less water weight because I was becoming more active and having less sodium in my diet. You definitely need sodium in your diet, don't get me wrong, but the way I was eating way too much. So my educated guess is that a couple of those 34 pounds were related to those issues: water weight, and unnecessary intestinal gas. But also, I would say a majority of these pounds were in fact fat. So why was cycling the fix? Well, because it was an activity that requires a high caloric output. I would ride roughly an hour to 2 hours a day and burn anywhere from 700 to 1,800 calories. This means if my metabolism stayed the exact same as before, I could eat upwards of 3,000 calories a day and still be in a 500 calorie deficit for the day. That seemed a lot more achievable than trying to eat 1,700 calories to lose weight. Now, it doesn't have to be cycling. It can be any sort of physical activity for you. Cycling was nice because I had a power meter on my bike, which gave me a very accurate caloric output on my rides each day. But with fitness wearables having better and better technology, you can utilize something like an Apple Watch to have a similar effect. You can see a caloric output from a workout based on what the watch says and apply that to MyFitnessPal to get a caloric intake you can have for the day and still achieve weight loss. However, let's preface some things. I definitely did some things wrong here. First, I didn't adjust for my metabolic changes. One thing I want to note though is that MyFitnessPal is great for tracking macros, but it is known to be pretty bad when it comes to tracking your BMR and your caloric output. The best way to track your BMR is the Oxford method. You can find it online here. I'll put the link on the screen and down in the description. And as for output, like I said, wearables or a power meter, if you are into cycling, is the best way to go. When doing the math, you will find that my BMR would have actually been closer to 2,400 calories when I first started, meaning MyFitnessPal underestimated by about 700 calories, which only just accelerated the fat loss. Also, even though I wasn't active, the heavier you are, the higher BMR, because your body needs more energy to support a larger frame. My BMR is actually lower now than what it was back then. After losing that much weight, going back to the Oxford formula again, it shows that I'm probably closer to an 1,800 calorie BMR. However, what really changed when I added cycling was my maintenance calories. Since I was so active, your maintenance calories are far greater than what they were. So because I didn't really adjust for any of that, and was already on the cusp of eating a too high of a deficit, 1,000 calories a day is usually the rule of thumb for like the max caloric deficit that you want. I definitely was losing too much weight too fast. Now, I was lucky because I didn't really have any ramifications from this, but I urge you to be more careful than I was if you intend to embark on a similar journey. Do your own research and talk to a licensed nutritionist if you have access to one. A great resource that I am familiar with is Derek from Dialed Health. We will be filming a video in the next couple weeks about losing weight and maintaining muscle mass. A lot of that has to do with tracking specific macros, which I was doing at the time, but I want to save that discussion for someone with more professional experience. So with this formula, by December, I was down to 180 pounds, feeling very lean and happy. I started to feel my bike rides at the time because I started to focus more on performance rather than weight loss. But again, that is a story for another time with Derek. Before, I was just riding with no nutrition just to achieve the maximum caloric deficit that I could. So what are the takeaways? The first and most important takeaway is if you are struggling like I was, I want you to know that this is very possible. I'm here to help with whatever it is. If you need me to DM you on Instagram every day to hold you accountable, I will do it. Just DM me. Second is that, like I said, please don't do it the way that I did. It was more of a perfect storm than a structured journey. Things happen fast because I'm young, I have residual fitness, and dove straight into the deep end of being active. This process may be much slower for you, and that is totally okay. Just take it one day at a time and enjoy the process. Just promise me that you will stick with it for at least 30 days, and I promise you will start to see changes. And once you see those changes, it's addicting. Trust me. And yes, this is mainly a cycling channel, but that isn't for everyone, and I get that. So whether it's a 15-minute hike or a 5-hour bike ride, I urge you to add some sort of repeated activity to your everyday life if you haven't already. Again, I'll be making a video with Derek from Dialed Health here shortly to talk more about macros and how to switch the focus purely from weight loss to also maintaining muscle mass if that's something you guys are interested in. If you have any other comments about this, please comment down below and we'll answer those questions in that video. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.